Okay, before we start the story, I just want to say some people believe that this place is one of the most paranormal places on Earth, and some people also believe that this story is just a hoax.
The Pentagon and CIA,
they've been investigating
encounters with the paranormal at the ranch.
But what we can't deny is the fact that this place has been through 10 years of research.
UFOs. The program received more than $20 million for its work.
This is a potential threat, a grave one to our country.
And everybody who lives there knows about it.
And even towards the end of the story, a billionaire ended up buying this property just to do scientific research on what's going on in this area. But just make sure to stick around to the end of this story because it gets really crazy. Imagine you and your family moved from your beautiful neighborhood house to the middle of nowhere. It's a desert-like area, mountains off in the distance, many animals can fit on this ranch, and then your beautiful house. Just to find out days later that this land has been haunted for many years. In the late 1800s, Native American tribes known as the Utes had a war against another tribe known as the Navajo. They were mad that the Utes would capture their people and sell them off to slavery. As the Utes came to take the whole tribe into slavery, before the Navajo left, they cursed this land to what's known as the SkinWalker curse. If you guys like story about aliens, UFOs, anything weird, mysterious, and crazy, even true crimes, please sub to this channel. That's all we talk about here. That's all we do here, make story time videos. So if you like that, if that appeals to you and resonates with you, please subscribe to my channel. Like this video and comment your thoughts down below. In the northeastern corner of Utah lay this land known as SkinWalker Ranch. Legends have it that in this land, witches would actually come down from the sky and inhabit any wolf or any fox-like animal in that area. So SkinWalker Ranch was actually built on cursed grounds, and it wasn't until many years later that the owner of SkinWalker Ranch would start seeing these predator-like animals around his property. So the original owner would actually do research on this area. He found out that it was cursed, so that's where the name SkinWalker Ranch came from.
This is like the Area 51 of the paranormal.
In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman actually purchased this property for really cheap because the previous owner had actually abandoned the whole property, so they got to buy this property for below market price. They were really excited to purchase this property, only because they usually have cattle, and this cattle would be able to free roam because this land was like 500 acres. This was a really big piece of land. This was a dream purchase for the family, but when they went to check it out, they kind of realized some strange things. The grass was a little bit overgrown, the house was kind of old, like it was just really strange. It even got weirder because when they walked into the house, they noticed that the windows had deadbolts on them. The doors had locked from the inside and outside. Not only the doors leading into the house, but doors between rooms would have these locks on both sides of the door. They also noticed at the back of the property were these big pikes in the ground that had these long, big, thick chains coming off of it. And they were thinking that these chains looked like they held some pretty big guard dogs. They were a little bit off, but they were so excited about this purchase that they kind of just overlooked that. They were thinking to themselves like, oh, maybe the previous owner was just paranoid, you know, because it's a pretty big property. So they're thinking that it was just a little bit of paranoia, maybe a little bit of anxiety. So the day that they're moving in, they actually have family members come over to help them move their stuff from the truck into the house. And during this process, Terry actually looks out in the distance and see a wolf kind of like about 300 meters away. He spots this wolf, but he's not intimidating, no sort of anxiety. He just makes a note that there's a wolf 300 meters away. And he would also point it out to the rest of the family members that there was this wolf that was off in the distance. So the whole family now stops what they're doing, looks off into the distance and see this wolf kind of, as Terry would describe it, snaking towards them, like coming left and right and just like moving towards them. So as he's looking off into the distance, there's also this fence from where the wolf was coming from. The fence had like posts, and each post was about 6 feet away from each other. So when he's looking at this wolf, he's noticing like, yo, this wolf is around 6 feet long. So he thought that his eyes were playing a trick on him. And the wolf that was coming towards them, he wasn't really aggressive. He was just kind of nonchalantly trotting towards them. And Terry and the family thinks that this wolf means no harm. They didn't try to shoot it, they didn't try to run it away, they didn't try to throw things at it. They kind of just watched this dog or this wolf nonchalantly trot towards them. So the wolf actually comes up to Terry's father. The wolf actually wasn't even aggressive towards him. So Terry's father would actually put out his hand just to see what the wolf would do, and the wolf really wasn't aggressive. He was acting like a domesticated dog. And just how the wolf walked up to the family, it also saw these cows and calves in this pen, and one of the calves actually had their neck out of this gate area. So the dog, seeing this, walks over to the calf and actually bit his head off. But because this calf was behind cages, it couldn't completely rip its head off, so it was biting at it, chewing at it, trying to rip this calf out of the cage. Terry and the family seeing this is like, oh, this wolf is trying to kill our livestock. He would go inside, grab his gun, shoot the wolf, but the wolf didn't even feel it. It didn't even look like it got shot. So the son would actually run into the house, grab an axe, run up to the wolf, and started hitting its head. And the wolf was just unfazed. It didn't really care. Then after a while, it kind of got bored of trying to rip the calf out of the cage. So it just nonchalantly just like didn't care and just started running back into the forest. But Terry and his family is still really like, what the heck? And then so he pulls out another rifle, aims it at the wolf, and started firing again. But just like last time, nothing really happened. This wolf wasn't really fazed. And right as the wolf left, they noticed this horrible smell that this wolf gave off. But Terry and his son were not having it. They decided to actually go after the predator, after the wolf. They were thinking to themselves, they gotta kill this thing because they don't want their livestock, their cattle, their cow, their bulls, all this to get killed by this big wolf. As they're going into the forest, they see the wolf's footprints. And as they keep walking and walking, they came up on this mud pile on the ground and the footprints just disappeared. So now they don't really know where this wolf has went. So they would go back to their family and tell them that they didn't really see any sort of leads that could lead them to where the wolf is. There was no blood trails leading into the forest. The footprints just immediately stopped at that mud pile and disappeared. So now they're kind of all on edge, and this first day was really strange for them, and now they're just thinking like a little bit paranoid thoughts, anxious thoughts that maybe this might come back and take out their livestock. And after this day, Gwen and Terry started to notice some strange things around the house. And this really made her start to question her memory, or if she was going insane, or if something was going on psychologically with her. This one incident happened where she went and bought groceries. She actually unpacked all the groceries, put them where they're supposed to go. She went to go use the bathroom. When she came back, the groceries were still in the bag. That same day, she went to take a shower. She had her towel up where she usually has it. And when she came out of the shower, the towel wasn't there. So she just got another one. And a couple minutes later, she went looking around the house and the towel was on the complete other side of the house. It wasn't until Terry had one of the same experiences as Gwen that they started to question if this had any sort of connection to the wolf incident. So this one day, now Terry's kind of terrified of that wolf. He's building fences around the property, and as he's digging the holes, he was using this really big tool, like huge. It weighed like around 70 pounds or so. He would get a little bit tired, go inside, get a drink, get a bite to eat, and then when he came back out, the tool was gone. So now he's asking his family like, yo, do you guys see my tool? Like, where did this go? And they're like, no, we didn't see it. The last time we saw it was you having it going outside to dig these holes. A week goes by and now Terry's patrolling the ranch just to see if he could find any sort of predators like wolves, maybe even coyotes, just things like that. And as he's walking, he looks up into the tree and he sees his digging tool. Reminder, this weighs like 70, 80 pounds. This tool is like 90 feet at the top of this tree. And this tree was about 50 to 75 meters or so away from where he was digging the hole. Terry would actually go back home and tell Gwen about the situation, and Gwen would start to tell him about her situations, and now they're all kind of anxious and scared and start thinking like, yeah, these are some really weird incidents that's going around the property. And what makes it even more like anxiety inducing is that half of the problems that they're facing are completely unexplained. Like, there's been no solutions. Like, they still haven't known what happened to the dog or how these things just go missing. They're just really skeptical of this ranch now. One night, while Terry's sleeping, he would get up and look through his window and see these headlights off in the distance. So at first, since this is like their first 2 weeks on the property, they're not really so like paranoid about these lights. Terry actually thinks that it might have been someone that made a wrong turn onto the property and maybe they got lost, and so he's not really bugging that much about these lights. But when he starts to see these lights way more frequently, this is when he started to get a little bit suspicious as to what's going on. He would actually end up getting really mad one of these nights. He would get up, grab his rifle, hop in his car, and start driving over towards the lights. So as he's driving, he's thinking about all these strange incidents that's been happening inside the house, the family problems because of it, the calf that got his neck basically ripped off, the predator that's still out there. All of this emotion is just inside of him, and he's just really mad, and he's gonna take out this frustration on whatever or whoever is producing these lights. And as he's getting closer to the lights, he notices that it's actually getting farther from him. And then it started to get darker, and then it just went off into the sky. So now he's like, what the f***? So this one winter afternoon, Terry actually noticed that one of his cows were missing. So now he's going around looking for this cow. And the same forest that the wolf came out of, Terry actually saw the cow's footprints leading into the forest. So he starts following the foot trails of this cow, and once he got to that same muddy part, they vanished. And this happened a couple more times through the winter, but towards like the end of the winter, all his animals have just vanished. If that was me, I would have left so quick. So one night, while Terry's patrolling his property, he saw through his peripherals, he saw a massive object moving around in the trees. So he would crunch down, kind of hiding behind bushes, look off between like these tree lines, and he would see this jet-like stealth fighter airplane that had this light coming from it. The light was like scanning the ground, and he's moving the slightest bit just to get a better view, and the bush actually made a little noise, and this object instantly turned off its light and looked towards Terry. So now Terry can actually feel the presence of this object, and he's like, oh my god, this is gonna kill me. This is probably what's been taking my livestock. This is what's terrorizing my property. Like, oh my god. And then out of nowhere, the object just left. It just disappeared. So now a year later, in 1995, Terry's animals and cows and all this would show back up, but they weren't just normal. They had precision cuts all over their body. Like their whole legs would just be cut, and this got him really paranoid. And in addition, he would see these human-like entities walking around his property at night, multiple of them, and they would be communicating in this really weird language. One night, a couple of them even came up to their window and like put their hands towards their face and looked in through the windows. But what was weird, as Terry also described, is that these entities didn't even have faces. So when they were looking through the window, it wasn't like a face, it was just like darkness. So now the family is really freaked out. They get terrible sleep. Gwen starts getting kind of delusional. Her job like lays her off, fires her, tells her like, nah, we can't have someone like this here right now. Terry's son would start performing really bad in school because of this lack of sleep. Now the whole family's on edge. And this one night, while Terry was actually sitting on his porch, he looked out in the distance and saw this green looking orb in the sky. And he had his rifle next to him. He takes it up and looks at this orb, and he said it looks kind of like a portal. And as he's looking at this portal, he can see like this blue looking background in the portal, like the blue sky, like bright day, like a different dimension. And this aircraft thing came out of this portal, and these black entities that he saw the night before started also coming out of the portal. Following that night, they would also start seeing blue orbs around the property, and this was one of the most terrifying experiences for them. They said that when the orb came near them, it would give them this severe anxiety feeling, severe paranoia, and every time the orb would leave, the anxiety and paranoia would kind of just go away. So as he's sitting outside on his porch now, because this is what he's doing, you know, he's stressed out, there's these weird situations going on, so he just want to have a little breather. He sits out on the porch again. He sees this blue orb. And as he sees the blue orb, the dogs next to him, all three of them start growling. Then he just lets them off the leash and they all start running towards this orb. So now Terry's happy, like, yes, finally a small victory. He scared the orb. Like, he's really excited. Until he starts hearing his dogs like crying and yelping like, oh, and then he just ran inside, locked the door because he was now just terrified. So Terry and his son would go out the next morning looking for these dogs. And once they got to the woods area again, like 3 burnt marks in the ground and ash piles in these burn marks. And Terry, being the person he is, he realized that these ash piles were his dogs. So now he's really terrified, his son's terrified. They finally decide to sell the property, and a newspaper company would actually catch wind of them wanting to sell this property and catch wind of their story because, you know, they're telling these people what happened on the ranch. And with their luck, a billionaire named Robert Bigelow would actually buy the property. And he would make this ranch the headquarters for his paranormal research facility. And this research facility wasn't only for the ranch, it was actually for any other paranormal activities that were going on in the country. So Terry selling it off to him, he was still curious to know what was really haunting his family at night. So he would ask them if he could stay. Plus, these people are all scientists, so they don't really know the ranch like that. And he's been here for like damn near a year now. So he kind of knows that area really well. So the scientists and Robert Bigelow decide to actually keep Terry with them. And Terry would end up helping them maneuver around the ranch. Robert established this facility and it's known as NIDS, or National Institution for Discovery Science. And he built this team before actually buying this ranch. And he had some of the best researchers possible, some of the smartest people helping him with his research. He didn't really want people that were interested in the paranormal. He wanted people that were skeptical of the paranormal. Not maybe that, oh, this would be interesting to know about. He wanted people that believed that these things were real and wanted to kind of give proof to society that paranormal activities are a real thing. And the reason he was doing it, because if he could actually prove paranormal activities, he would get major credibility. He would be known as the person that discovered blah, 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 you know? Stuff like that. So once they set up this research facility, the first thing they started doing is testing. They test the water supplies, their psychological history, maybe spores coming from plants were causing like hallucinogenic effects on them. They just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a psychological or an environmental factor that was causing them to see these weird entities and objects. The first year the research team was there, nothing strange really happened. Maybe a couple weird lights off in the distance. Nothing really crazy to that sort. And they didn't really think the family was hallucinating. So as Terry and Gwen are tagging animals, you know, putting like markers on them just to say like, oh, this is him, just tagging these animals, 40 minutes go by and their dogs would start growling like really aggressively. They went over to another area and saw one of the cows completely dissected, kind of diced up, with the tag on his ear actually removed, and had these precision-like cuts on its limb and bodies. So they're thinking there's no way another animal came through and killed this cow. Like, it had to be someone that did surgery on it. That's how precise this was. And there was also no blood. So they called over the scientists and they started a massive search around the facility because they wanted to know who did this to this cow or what did this to this cow. And as they're searching, 4 of their guard dogs started looking off in one direction, all in sync, looking in one direction, looking towards the woods. So as Terry and the NIDS researchers are going towards where these dogs are looking, Terry stops short and say, I see something in the tree. It was this massive, weird looking creature. All the NIDS researchers and Terry started shooting at this creature, and then it just disappears into the forest. So the team now charges into the woods. They all split up and they see these big claws and footprints in the dirt. And once they got to that mud part where the wolf and the cattle, all their footprints disappeared, these claw prints and footprints would also disappear for this massive creature. So they go back to the facility, now confused, can't make sense of the situation. They're thinking like, what the heck, like what's going on? And as they walk around the facility again, the bulls that are usually in their enclosure are no longer in their enclosure. So now they're all like really panicked and they're like, yo, these are really expensive bulls. Like, where did they go? And Terry sees this small trailer and he would walk over to the trailer. He's like, I don't know, something in him was telling him like, yo, there might be something in the trailer. So he walks over to the trailer, looks in it, and see these 4 bulls like under a trance, just acting like just still in this small closed area. Terry would call for help, and this would actually startle the bulls, and now they're like freaking out, like making noises and start like hitting each other in this small area. But Terry and the NIDS researchers would actually get these bulls out, but it took them really long hours to get them out and back into their enclosure. And what was even weirder is because it would take hours to get 1 bull in this area, imagine 4 bulls in this small enclosed area. And the other thing about it is that the little van that these bulls were in, the door was locked. Like, there was no way that someone got them in there with this thing locked. The NIDS researchers now can't make sense of what happened, but they realized that there's a part of the enclosure that's highly magnetic. So they're thinking that this might be something that has to do with why the bulls were in that area. And as 2 of these researchers are using compass to see the magnetic pulse coming from the bull enclosure, they start smelling that smell of the wolf, the same smell at the start of the story. And as they're smelling this smell, the compass would actually start pointing towards the smell, and they're just uncomfortable, and they also feel like they're being watched. Then the smell stopped, and the compass arrow would actually go back towards the bull enclosure. But the worst event of this story happened in 1997, when 2 of the NIDS researchers were actually on a ridgeline above the house looking down at it. And as they're looking down at this orange portal, one of the workers pulled out an infrared light, started to look at it, and he started to see this black entity come out of the portal. And this black entity would instantly come out and start running towards them, kind of like clawing like this towards these researchers. So now they're terrified. They're like, yo, this is coming to kill us. What is this? This is a huge animal. It was this huge, long, lengthy, scary looking animal running and clawing its way towards them. And they're just there, shocked in fear, just didn't even move. They didn't even run. They were just shocked. And as it's clawing towards them, this creature just clawed its way past them. So now they're relieved and they're like, oh, thank God. And in 1998, nothing crazy really happened in that year. And in 2004, they would pull the plug on this facility. You know, nothing crazy was happening. They were getting like little glimpses, little photos of events, these strange lights, but they didn't really have solid proof to prove what they were saying was like evidence. Like, they didn't have solid evidence. The most they could show was the magnetic fields that the compass was picking up, the pieces of cows that were dissected, the animals going missing, pictures of the light, and over 100 eyewitness testimonials, but that's all they really could offer as proof. There was no real solid evidence. But they always felt like these entities were just one step ahead of them. Like, no matter what they did, they couldn't really catch these entities in their action. And remember, this is like the 1990s, like 1995 to like the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002. But some people believe this story, some people think it's fake. There's been 100 eye testimonial witnesses that say that this is a real story. So comment your thoughts on what do you think? Like, is this a real story, a fake story? Have you heard about this story? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. But if you guys really want to know why we've been seeing aliens and UFOs a lot lately, click this video right here and it will show you exactly what's going on today with these UFOs and strange sightings. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe. I upload once a week. I would love the support, so please subscribe. Anyways, peace out.